How's everyone doing? Time to bring on the big guns. It's a subject that's I've been studying for an amount of time, playing with for a good amount of time, noticing the interconnection between multiple practices, as well as multiple effects that it had over my life and the lives of my friends as well. And it's something that we take for granted, but that shit kind of runs your life in a certain way. So I'll try to be as much. I'll try to give you as much information as possible, as well as giving you some exercises about it. Yet, it's a vast subject that you'll have to test it out for yourself. And if you're coming into this video with just blinders and going, I don't want to list, I don't even want to test those things out. I'm just going to believe one thing and just go the other way, then that's fine. It's your choice. Yet, especially in the aspect of, or this particular subject, if you don't necessarily take hold of it, then the exterior can affect you, whether you want it or not. So this is all an individual choice. I respect all your choices, yet this is something, it's a pattern that we had not noticed collectively in society from various inventions that we've kind of created, as well as societal interactions. And now we're kind of hitting a crux point where we're starting to kind of go, oh shit. So hey, all of it is in your hand, and either way you can always ask some questions. You can have some book references. I'll see if I can mention various other talks and various other books, even videos that you could look into just to go deeper. But also, the best thing that I can tell you is make your own experiments. Be more aware and conscious of what's going on inside, okay? And that way you're going to be able to understand the one-to-one relationship within your own self. So, repetition. I know I spoke about it prior, and it's been kind of an old video, a couple of months old. And repetition goes more, much more than your day-to-day action. It kind of encompasses everything in your life. Meaning, how'd you learn to walk? You repeated until the motion became easier. You gained a stable footing, and then it just clicked, went into your subconscious, and you were able to do it. You don't necessarily need to think about walking anymore. But early on, you needed to do that repetition in order to get the momentum and understand how it goes, and then be able to do it subconsciously. The same goes for driving. Driving is another good comparison and another very good, let's say, beat per beat example for how repetition becomes a part of your life. Initially, you're like, okay, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta watch out here, I gotta watch there. But then eventually, after enough repetition, as well as repetition of going through various roads, you begin to just, oh yeah, you're just driving, everything's fine. You're even talking to a passenger. So repetition leads to a much quicker understanding within the subconscious mind, and then you're kind of able to do it automatically. Okay, even when it comes to do art, I'm diving into that aspect of subconscious state when doing certain kind of repeated practice. If you're going to practice hands in your art, then you're going to do hands consciously over and over and over. You might use model sheets, and then after a while, okay, done. It's just in your head. The rest is just variations, but you've got the basics down. Now, key word, that shit goes into your subconscious, because this is where you gotta be, you become a bit more, how do you say, noticing of what's going on in your subconscious. You're becoming more aware of how important your subconscious is, because if repetition keeps simple actions and then retains them to go on autopilot that simply, a lot more things can be done that way. Okay, people have used, and I spoke about it, sleep tapes to get into a different state as they're going to sleep, because that period, the period between going to bed and then early morning, are very critical periods where you can implement things into your subconscious mind. Either sleep tapes, either mantras, affirmation, incantation, they all kind of wrap around the same thing. It's something that you tell yourself, repeat within your mind, so that eventually your subconscious just picks it up and keeps it as such, which is why there were a lot, and still are, a lot of therapies with repetition of mantras, repetitions of various statements, affirmations, so that the person that's in a current state, let's say, for example, depression or anxiety, can lead themselves back by switching their focus, having that repetition of that switch of focus, which leads a repetition of a better state, which is then anchored into the subconscious. Okay? It's really that simple. It's like you're seeing a visualization of you starting level, who knows, man, you're level 15 on depression and anxiety, okay? And you're starting this treatment. So late night and early morning, you're starting to tell yourself affirmations. You're starting to watch shit that's actually fun. You're starting to plan and imagine better scenarios for your life, okay? So with that repetition, the initial start is, the conscious mind is like, yeah, but I'm so familiar with the depression, anxiety. It's so easier to stay in there. That's cool. You're chunking off level 15. You're getting to level 14 and level 13. Of course, there's going to be a resistance towards it. But every time you're going to do that repetition, you're going to feel less pull towards that, depression level 15, now 14, 13, 10, and you're going to start heading towards a much happier state because you're going to be repeating and anchoring a state. You can even cheat code and say, okay, how would it feel if I had that state in advance? And you'll start picturing what level 5 of that state would be. It's that simple, okay? And this is how you begin to impress certain things in your subconscious mind. And that's very, very, very fucking powerful because you are able to consciously, especially with the example made, you're able to consciously look at what's going on within your life, your thought pattern, things that you didn't choose, remember, insert and play that tape about how we're born and we didn't choose some of these thought patterns, all within the societal aspect of things and good intentions that we were thrown upon. And now you can just head towards a better pattern and a better state that you would prefer. That's simple, right? With repetition. Now, why I tell you this is crucial and very important to understand for your life and the lives of everyone around you is that this form of repetition happens every fucking moments of your life, okay? Meaning, you're gonna open up a browser, you're gonna have a specific keyword, and you're gonna feel an emotion, or you're gonna feel a memory, okay? And if you keep repeating that process, then it becomes easier to have that association done, and that association popping back up. Okay, upon seeing, let's say, the trigger word or the trigger picture or the trigger situation, you guys remember this aspect, and they still talk about it in the news. People kind of getting in depression over not getting Instagram likes or not getting Facebook likes. Well, there was a repetition of an association of pleasure to that factor in that platform. And then enough of that repetition and not getting the need filled causes that reaction. Yet if that initial factor was not repeated, if that initial association was not repeated, then there would not be that feeling of depression from not getting the numbers of like. As simple as that, to a certain degree, technology indirectly, like I say, double-edged sword all the time. Yet here's the negative edge that it can kind of bring. Repetition, subconscious repetition of things that you do not particularly like. Here's another example, and I bring this all the time because it is a terrific example, and Joe Dispenza just made it much easier to understand with his studies in neuroscience. Go check out neuroscience and how it links to quantum physics as well. This will just help you. Commercials, passing on late at night. There are various visual tricks that happened to make you react while discussion is made. And especially around late night, remember, you are more susceptible to ingesting shit in your subconscious directly, even by passive listening. So at that point, it's quite easy to tell you that this disease has killed, or, in this age range, this disease, it will affect maximum amount of other people. And then I show you a grayscale of a person just feeling down and somber music, and then giving you all those stats, repetition, 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 to then tell you, but here's a solution. And then I brighten up the colors, I make the actor smile, I bring up the music, and I bring up the saturation. Like, I give you the solution, and then, of course, I quickly talk about the side effects, which are effects. That simple is a method of repetition. You want to go deeper? Okay, here's a problem that we've been dealing with collectively, and now it's gone to its peak. Thank you, millennials, because we have understood the momentum that this problem had created and reached its, with your generation, it has reached its peak. But it's not your fault, okay? It is never a specific aspect of fault, and I'm not one of those who goes, oh my god, boomers did this, zoomers did this, millennials did this. It doesn't matter. This never helped the problem. Yet, it's the aspect of demanding of one another. It's the aspect of expecting another person to respect a certain rule set and demanding it from them. This is a subtle pattern that has been brought up by parenting. Because when it comes to parenting, there's often, general parenting, not saying all parenting, but general parenting oftentimes will not give a long explanation to the kid on the why you need to do this, why you would want to do this, why is this advantageous for you. Oftentimes it's you do it or else, you do it or scolding, you do it or you're a failure, okay? Now that kind of repetition goes on towards school, or goes on in school. It is easy refer to another person, an authoritative person, because initially you referred to the parent, now you refer to the teacher. Refer to the teacher to know what is quote unquote right, and there's a demand, there's an expectation placed on you in those classrooms. Don't you dare move. Don't you dare do a lot of sound. Don't you dare go outside of the periphery or peripheral that I put upon you, okay? And then later on in life, work does that, okay? And of course, it's not saying it's an extreme shit thing. No, it is a pattern, a repetition of pattern that makes it easier in the subconscious to expect and repeat such behaviors. Now, here's where that pattern fucks with you. Is that later on in life, you begin to start expecting certain, let's say, right things. You begin to compare to others or to the exterior in an aspect of being right. But you were never told that this aspect of good, bad, right, wrong is all subjective. It all flows in an aspect of polarity. It's as long as you don't stick to an extreme. So oftentimes, people, before there was the internet, you would just doodle, let's say as an example, you would just doodle in a notebook. You didn't care about the dotted lines, or you didn't care about the lines. You just did your doodles, had fun, and played with it. But then comes stuff like Instagram or DeviantArt, where there's a lot more let's say players to compare to, especially a big thing that happened in college was just like, look at how those people in the industry do it, because that's the best way to do it. There's constantly there. So in your subconscious thought pattern, there's a little filter that's kind of created of comparison, because that's how it's been programmed earlier on. And yes, you can use the word program. It's not, we're not going into negative, deep dwelling conspiracy. No, it is literally how the human brain works. Repetition puts in a program in your subconscious. So the thing is, and this is where we're kind of starting to understand this, is to be able to spot various kind of repetitions and patterns that they create, as well as the results that those patterns leads to. Thus, okay, You want to set up your art, you just kind of want to have fun, put your art online. But now, because of that repetition of pattern, you're like, okay, is this good enough? Is it like this? Is it like that? Should it be like this? Should I draw on this other kind of paper? Should I use these tools? Should I use this filter? You see, all those subconscious thoughts, they take time from your process, where your initial free-flowing process is you do your work, you have fun, you learn from it, you post it online. Next, it's about continuing this aspect of creation and having fun sharing this aspect of creation instead of comparing before putting out that creation. There's some people, and especially when you start being a bit more aware of your subconscious thoughts and the time, the process and the time that it takes versus free flowing and being in that flow state, you begin to understand that the repetition of those little barriers are costing you a lot. Another example of that and of that momentum is, again, you guys saw the extremity of social justice. Well, it is a direct parallel to the extreme religious right. Okay? And this is why I say both extremes, how do I say, they reflect and mirror each other. Because you are a sinner, I consider you bad, but I assume you to be weak, so I must save you. That repetition happening over time causes mental blockers of, I can't think this way because that's kind of sinning based on what someone else told me. Keyword, based on what someone else told me. You weren't born with that. Keep that in fact, okay? Because that's how you get rid of that programming, when you see it hinders you. Or you would have from, again, extreme right, religious right, not wanting to look at various other philosophies and various other religion because this is my one and only. And then everyone else is a sinner, even though I was taught unity. But what was repeated more often was the aspect of everyone else is a sinner and I have to save them, which is not the initial message that was given. Okay, compare that to the extreme left. If you do not follow those rules, you are an enemy. You are not an ally. You are wrong. You are bad. You are ostracized. And we fucking saw what technology did if compared to the extreme right, where we didn't have technology to have pitchfork mobs and having people straight up lose their jobs over a small little comment that may have never really been interpreted in context. Well, the momentum just got much crazier. It got even worse in college because, again, it is a natural swing. There was an extreme right in schooling. There was an extreme right early on, way early on. I think prior to the 60s or even around that time, and it waned down. But then we saw the extreme left, which did the exact same thing. Now, with that repetition, a lot of people started feeling that they were walking on eggshells, so they did not feel like they could express themselves. Or even, and this is the worst part, express themselves, then balance that expression. Because this is the process of life. You get to a state, you evolve to a state, and then you balance yourself. You can't just go, fuck all those social justice warriors, and not balance yourself. You know, it's all about an aspect of balance and being open to it. Yet around that period, it was not necessarily allowed. Everything was taken out of context, not even asking, what is the context? What is your definitions of those terms and terminologies before I start criticizing you? The exact same thing as the extreme right. So that eggshell mindset trap over that aspect of repetition caused a lot of issues for people. So when you begin to understand how powerful repetition is, okay, that even includes in the aspect of logos that you would see, and then remembering, I'm loving it. Oh, could be interesting to get a burger. You know, small little things like that repeated over and over time. When you are not consciously aware of your emotional reaction, those things will just repeat, anchor in, and then out of nowhere, fuck, why am I feeling like shit? Because of something that I heard or because something that I read. Hell, again, something especially crucial, and again, thank you millennials, because showing us the extreme to the left was just beautiful. Again, Not a momentum that you chose, it's a momentum that just happened. And now we're up to a point where we're like, okay, fuck extreme right, fuck extreme left, let's balance it. Is the fact that early internet, Y2K, all right, going on MySpace, rarely would people get up in the morning and go check the news or have an emotional reaction based on the news. It was just about having fun, connecting to people. Yo, ASL, oh cool, you're from Japan. This is awesome. Let's talk, okay? And then over time, there was a subtle repetition of bringing in politics and various other subjects. I mean, when gaming got into politics, or when politics got into gaming, oh fuck, fun, right? But subtle repetition of those kind of mindsets into it. And then people could just nowadays go on Facebook, scroll. Ah, shit news. Oh crap, that sucks. Scroll. Oh, cool, cute cat. Scroll. Ah, shit news. Okay? Not only that, but you take it even further back, remembering when you didn't have a fucking television, okay? If you were at that state. If not, remember when you didn't have a cell phone, okay? You did not have those habits and emotional reaction of going online and then getting a reaction, okay, to something that you are not presently in the context of. You are not in the event. Thus, you wouldn't have that reaction. You didn't go out of your way to go read news articles or to listen to whatever someone's event happened and then have an emotional reaction off it. You know, hell, we even used to laugh at our parents that would just get emotional reaction out of something that happens in the newspaper. But now it's common, you know, it's quite common. Well, we did have an increase in technology, we did have an increase in video games, media, movies that made that particular habit of getting emotionally invested in, you can call it fiction because it is, if it's even if it's the news, it is still a fiction because you are not living it in the current present now. Your mind is making up what it would feel like to be in that moment, but you are not living it. Okay? So it is fiction. The same kind of goes for books, the same kind of goes for video game. So that repetition of reacting to fiction, okay, has become a subconscious pattern. Because now, okay, go listen to something in the news, something that really cares about. You're gonna get emotional reaction. Oh, really? You don't? You say you don't? Really? Okay, cool. Go outside and and cough. Notice the reaction that happens outside. Emotional programming, true repetition. Okay, it's that simple. Look at both states when you didn't have the internet, when you didn't have television, and then when you did. Notice the momentum that happened in your life and the various emotional triggers that you just caught a long time, okay? And all this is natural. It's just that now we're kind of understanding how deep that goes, okay? That even goes in the aspect of music. Certain songs repeated over and over and over will bring you into a state that you'll eventually program within yourself if you keep repeating that. Okay? So you kind of want to be careful of what kind of lyrics that this brings into you. Hell, one example is I had a whole group of friends that were just continuously shit talking each other and thought none of it. But internally, doesn't really help you. Especially having that kind of dialogue. If you have, like I always say, whether you shit talk someone else or you shit talk yourself, it is always coming from within you, so it is always affecting you. So that kind of behavior got a lot of people in that group not to follow up with their passion, not to give a chance to various things, not even to let some of their friends to test things out for themselves without having this constant passive aggressive criticizing. And they're not really feeling that well. I mean, there's the small little, I don't know, piece of cake that somebody would get from criticizing someone else or being a critic. But at the end of the day, it's not fulfillment. It's nothing. It's really nothing because that just tells more about what's going on within. But again, it is not their fault because they've picked up those patterns from both their parents, and then media. After a while, media started to get the dark and jaded hero. You know, gotta be a badass. You gotta hate stuff. Have a strong will for justice. You know, that momentum and that narrative became rampant. So inadvertently, that vision of life, that state, that emotional state, and the thoughts linked to those popular kind of dialogue, okay? The words, the assumption in the words, the momentum of the scripting and how it plays and pulls on the emotion, eventually it became easy for people to stay in those states without necessarily knowing, without necessarily batting an eye at it. Yet all of that is subtle repetition that sticks into your subconscious. And at that point, you kind of want to do the work to flip the other way, because why would you want to stick into a state, a negative state, that basically makes you jaded at life, doesn't even let you see a very clear and obvious potential that you have within you in the moment with everything that you currently have right now, and keeps you in this constant comparison method? Fuck that shit. Or even worse, why would you want to stick in a state that continuously has you comparing or assuming things from other people without realizing that those assumptions, they come from you? Some people are going to go with the bypass of saying, yeah, but society says this, so we should all collectively label that, let's say, behavior or habit this way. And to that, I straight up say, if society is going to keep trashing their mind, because let's be frank, okay? Your mind, your hard drive, we're all individual. But if society is going to keep a trash perception, are you going to keep trashing your mind as well? Or understanding that whatever you keep in your mind will give you a momentum in life, whether for your benefit or not, then just get rid of the trash, right? Wouldn't you just get rid of the trash? So the aspect of pointing out, judging, and labeling other people, okay, that rampant assumption, and then assuming the worst out of people, that's all subconscious repetition from a point that our media did not understand what it was doing in that aspect. Meaning, when you understand that whatever judgment and assumption comes from you and you only, then you kind of step away from main character Joe Blow that's going to be like, of course, this person did this to hate me and to be like this. They're evil. You get away from that Joe Blow crap. Because at that point, that just puts you in a continuously aggressive or antagonistic state where you're constantly seeing negativity around, which is what happened to a lot of people. I think they call them doomers, Subconscious repetition, none of their choice. But think about it and realize that shit. It's like a meme. The repetition of it gets you to remember it, see multiple other scenarios where you could apply that meme, and then react the same way. It's funny. But it's the same process repeated over and over and over, installing states in your subconscious. So that shit is really crucial now that we see it. It's like when you start understanding that just that simple repetition of seeing the other person as a nutter, instead of understanding what all the fucking religious texts have told us, not just Christian, but I mean all of them, that we are all one. Because whether I judge you or I judge myself, it always comes from within the database that I have inside. Okay? And I just can't say, oh, well, because society decides to label, let's say, use the best example, to Trump, whatever. If you reacted once the Trump was said, boom, you got programming, man. Programming. But again, if society is going to label individuals like that, and you're going to take that trash labeling of saying, oh, this person's a fucktard, a real dickhead, look at that. Well, you're still keeping trash inside your own mind. You're just using the collective as a safety bank for keeping trash inside your mind, which is eventually going to go up against you, because you're going judging and criticizing willy-nilly and then justifying it with the rest. So as soon as the rest is going to change to one side, you're going to jump that way. Are you a lemming? No, you're not. But sometimes you kind of want to face that mental repetition and that the mental repercussion of that repetition by kind of going, well, are you a fucking lemming? Are you going to jump off a bridge if everyone else does it? You know, of course, you won't, but face it. You kind of want to face those habits. You want to face those momentums because oftentimes this is what leads to extreme, which then snaps back. Completely snaps back. It's just like when extreme left kind of came, they fucking created the alt-right. So a lot of people is like, well, fuck you. You're preaching justice and union on one side, but you're acting like such terrible assholes on another. Fuck. Exact same repercussion of the extreme right. See, we've been bouncing back and forth. All repetition, okay? But now we're at a point where we understand, and not just religious texts, we even got neuroscience and quantum physics talking about this, the effects that this has. Oh, right. One of the best thing that you want to keep in mind is that when it comes to repetition and this aspect of, oh man, that's pushing it, but neuroscience is going to bring it to you, that electromagnetic field that we have, yeah, you repeat a certain kind of thought, you fuck up your body. You fuck up your cells, you know, and you also affect people around you. Dude, it's fucking nuts when you realize that. And stats are there. There's been experiments. Fucking do your research. Do your research. It's going to be easier to have your mind it's going to be easier to have your mind process it when you do those kind of research and you do your experiments instead of just listening to me and just taking it as it is. You'll fucking make the one-to-one connection as soon as you do your research and you play around with that, okay? Especially certain exercise. Hell, doing revision and retrospectives, again, of how you were in one state versus another state. When you got this habit versus when you didn't, okay? When you do that, it is going to be clear as daylight. And when you become much more aware of your emotional shifts and state shifting throughout your day, as well as some of the factors, asking yourself, okay, when did I begin reacting like that to that factor? Why? What implemented this? It just becomes much more obvious. Again, ain't no evil babies. You weren't born with this. And this is like a stamp, a staple to just understand. No one is born with this shit. It's just that now the repetition of those habits, of those momentums, of those perceptions, unchecked, has led to extremes. And we're able to understand now that, yeah, it ain't anyone's fault. It's just an aspect of collectively putting a pause over the media watching, over the posting, over all of that, okay? Which is why you got to say thank you to Coco, because the Coco 19 is how I call it, because fuck that programming in a way. A lot of people react to that trigger, so I'm not going to bring that shit back. Yet, the Coco 19 gave us an amazing blueprint for repetition and how you can, in 2020, just react off somebody sneezing, or react off somebody having a mask, or react off somebody talking about an experience which they may or may not be in the context of. You know, it was an amazing, beautiful blueprint on how you can get to see how a repetition can lead people to acting certain way or not. Beautiful example. You got to be proud, because when you understand that blueprint, you can reverse it to whatever you kind of want to have, or whatever state you want to have in your life. It is that simple. Repeated over time on multiple medias. Hell, you even have an app to get more fear. Stuff, good intentions, very good intentions. And again, same kind of goes for the extreme left and extreme right. Very good intentions. It's just that there was no knowledge in this aspect. Just like how in both cases, with the good intentions, there is an assumption of the other, let's say the sinner, or the whatever term the extreme left use, the cis or whatever, whatever term, it doesn't matter. There is an assumption that the other is less than, or that the other needs an aspect of protection, which is again seeing lack in them. But that's being programmed. Again, they were told in school, they were told in church that continuously, through repetition, that the other is less. They are sinners if they don't follow that, and you must save them. And that repetition over time gets people into that state of thinking, again, with good intentions, but here's the problem. When you assume that the other is less, your intentions bring on that kind of energy. Again, electromagnetic field, but there's also a psychological approach to it. If I think you are less, then I'm cuddling you in an aspect where I'm not letting you empower yourself in your own way with a balance that you're going to understand and find out as you go through this process. I'm considering you weak, so, oh man, I gotta cuddle you. I have privileges because you're weak. You're poor. You lack. You can't understand this, so I have to cuddle you. I have to shield and defend you. And then guess what? It's putting on and reinforcing the pattern in you, which you may have never chosen to begin with. It's just because somebody has told you and repeated over and over and over. May have even showed you videos. May have even showed you audios. Oh, wow. If there was subliminal programs for that, that would be kind of fucked. But honestly, repetition makes you its bitch. You can change the term and terminology all you want. Have fun with this. It's not to bring this as a, oh my god, conspiracy. I gotta be careful. No. It's human habits we didn't fucking check. Like I keep saying, our parents and grandparents had a hint and clue, but they still stuck to the problem of saying, it's television, it's theater, it's movies, it's music, it's video games. Instead of bringing this aspect of one's own personal balance, they came with it with good intentions, but assuming that everyone else was weak compared to those devices. Just like the Unabomber. Dude had a fucking vision, LSD experiences, but the dude had a fucking vision about how technology would fuck with us over a couple of years. So, because he was still in the fearful state, didn't have guides or shaman when it comes to those substances, well, he took it on personally and said, I'm going to destroy those companies. And, of course, unbalanced, started doing letter bombs to those places. It's not an aspect of destroying the technology or condemning anything or anyone. It's an aspect of understanding your own personal momentum due to that repetition or various repetitions in your environment, even including friend circles and family, understanding what is being said, what is being assumed, what is being projected and repeated. Is it lack belief? Is it fearfulness? Is it all of that? Hell, we Canadians, we saw that transition between having our homes open to having a massive fear campaign early 90s about, you gotta watch out for your predators. You gotta watch out for your neighbors. Hell, you guys remember 9/11? Everybody was like, oh my god, those Arabs, and because it was constantly advertised. And then we find out a couple of years later, oh, there's much more to it. Oh, you shouldn't be hating your neighbors, And it's like, well, you get one fear campaign on one end leading you to a momentum, and then boom, go the other way. It's like, it's all about understanding the momentum, what it has created. The same kind of goes for religion. No, never go full Bill Maher, because whenever you bring a snide, angry, revengeful aspect to it, you're not helping. You're not leading to a solution, a balance, okay? But it's the same thing. One extreme leading to another. But again, repetition leading to consequences. So now we're at this point where we just balance this shit out. And to a certain degree, millennials and further generation, I know it's not warranted, but fuck it. There's an apology for you, We collectively did not know the momentum of that technology and those social norms as well. Those social habits and behavior. We had no fucking clue because our science didn't get to that point, and we didn't have that intercommunication between multiple practices, multiple careers, and multiple philosophies. We've only got this recently. So we never really expected that you guys would just get the blunt of that depression and anxiety because of that momentum of patterns. Because when we look back at it, it's like, all right, our parents were a bit like that. Very, very strict to a certain degree, depending on the parents. I'm not going to, in a general sense, the parenting aspect of it was less about taking time to explain and more about do this now or else, or even worse, in certain communities, you were a trophy child. So there was no explaining. There was no do this now. You would just get smacked and you'd better be in line, And the momentum of that was a continual aspect of reflecting back to the exterior to get a confirmation, getting the check mark, getting that aspect of, oh yeah, this based on this stat, I'm able to pull this off, Stats, numbers, being played with that over and over and over, having emotional reactions to numbers, immaterial and physical numbers. We didn't know. So, in a sense, again, we didn't know what we didn't know. So, in a sense, there's no need for an apology. But I want to say, because of the thank you I gave you guys, I also do want to bring in an apology on that. Because, yeah, you guys got the blunt of it. Really, it's fucked. Like, up to a point when I started knowing, noticing and getting feedback of people that were just getting emotional over likes on Facebook and Instagram and having that reaction, also noticing the momentum, it's like, wow, yeah, fuck, that sucks. Over a small thing like that. Well, I perceive it as small because I was, and many of, X marks the spot generation, we have lived without that. So we're able to perceive the differences between states. Yet you guys were kind of born with this. And I don't think you guys are the iPad babies, but there were some that were just stuck with the iPad on the cradle. And the momentum when it comes to that, the repetition, the subconscious indoctrination that happens, or the subconscious programming, whatever word you want to say, that's kind of fucked. It's kind of like you guys taking the momentum that wasn't necessarily balanced, because we didn't fucking know. So we didn't fucking balance it. And then you guys just took the blunt. And again, especially in that moment of social justice, it was an eye opener because we saw the extreme of another good intention, but being a perfect exact mirror of what we lived through. So that's why there was a lot of tension, subconscious tension, because after living through that, you don't want to jump back into that. You don't want to jump back into another label box eggshell. Fuck that. Of course, certain people reacted that way, but they could not express it. So that created the other extreme. Again, back and forth. And again, it's an unfortunate thing, but as well as fortunate, because understanding it, especially you guys with this whole technological understanding, you'll be able to go the extra step that our parents may or may not necessarily be able to do without our collective help. You guys are going to be able to scale back, go back through the momentum of your life and just quickly clear out those subconscious patterns. Quickly get rid of it to the degree that you balance your use of those devices and understand how they affect you. And then taking the time to do it is your ultimate challenge. If you have a hard time letting go of the cell phone or even smash that cell phone lockbox that they sell, well, then you understand that the repetition of that habit has gotten you to a point where these devices or looking at those pages has created a dopamine dependency. And, you guys are facing that blunt. And fuck, we're here to help. We're fucking here to help. It was always a big-ass co-op. It's just that we were never taught it that way. So unfortunately, you guys went in that momentum and still got into the, let's say, competitive aspect, comparative, instead of, again, understanding it's all co-op. Whatever you see in another, you have it within yourself, your own hard drive. So it's not the other one. It's just that with technology, that perpetual behavior of perception has been magnified. It has been casualized. It became normal to perceive life and other people that way. But when you get back to it and you understand how you were as a kid, it's not normal, It's just that we gotta influenced by, again, device, repetition, our parents, our environment, where they made it normal. We laughed at them reacting off newspaper. Maybe you were laughing at them reacting off something in the television, okay? But, yo, we're in this co-op. Same goes for all the other generation. And when it comes to the older generation, I think it's going to be a collective help. Yeah. It's going to be much more of a collective help towards them. Nothing forceful. This is, again, point of balance. It is not assuming others to be weak. And it is not forcing help onto others, saying you need the help or else you're not fit. No, you're already whole and complete. It's all an aspect of balance. And it's understandable. Now you understand the process of repetition. So it's understandable that the prior generation will have a much tougher time moving out of those patterns. Because as you saw with the big Coco 19, they were specifically targeted because they've watched televisions for a long time. So they are more susceptible and adept to considering what's on those devices as true, not understanding the aspect that they are not in context, not even batting an eye at not understanding what leads to a moment, thus creating an event. There is a huge power to context, especially when you understand your own emotional state and what led to them. And because, unfortunately, they got that invention first, and has had that repetition happen over time, context doesn't really fucking matter. Or oftentimes batted an eye at, And they never necessarily got that too. Oftentimes these folks were just beaten by their parents. It's like, I don't care about your feelings or what led to your feelings. Fuck off and do what I tell you. They've received it that hard. Okay? So you can understand how the repetition of that harshness leads to an aspect of, well, I need to be right and I need to be absolutely safe because I was beaten for it, or I was attacked for it, or I was chastised by it by community or by my parents over and over and over because of that. So there's a subconscious hard lock that happens. We can't fault them. We can't fault them the same way that, Xers and any other generations in between cannot fault millennials or Zoomers or XYZ. You can't fault them. It's all in an aspect of now understanding this because we finally just stop being so egoistical with knowledge or seeing the other people as less or other philosophies as less. So again, now we're balancing this double-edged sword and we're all open to having this communication. So again, thank you. Have the apology if you want. If you don't, that's all cool. Because again, everything is and isn't at the same time. It's warranted and not at the same time because we didn't fucking know what we didn't fucking know. And the same kind of goes for you and anyone that was stuck in any momentum or pendulums, extreme religion or extreme social justice. You guys didn't know what you didn't know. You didn't understand the subconscious mind. It is not a popular thing. You won't necessarily see it on TV. And oftentimes it's radically just shortcutted. You'll see it pseudo-psychological show, pseudo-psychological anime that doesn't even get to the initial point of the creation of thought pattern within one's being, leading to various momentum. Oftentimes you don't even get to see the momentum. So it hasn't been popular. It's just now that we're getting to this big-ass, massive multiplayer co-op that it's always been. And yeah, kind of have to thank the Coco for it. Again, beautiful example. And just look pre-Coco and after Coco or during Coco. And you're going to get a much easier beat per beat understanding of how do you say, program habits within you. Okay? It's very crucial and important. Very crucial and important to look at this in your life because at that point, you're able to program whatever you want for yourself. It's all repetition. It is all implanting it in your subconscious. So have fun. And you can also help people with this. You can also have session talking to the degree that the person is open to talking and trying exercise, and that being the big thing. Taking time to do those exercise and repeating that. Repetition, Or you can play around and have very background repetition. Do your own tapes, your own audios, your own subconscious audios, you know? Do that. But as long as you take the time to do it consciously, being aware of your current momentum and mood shift, then GG, golden. Golden. Fucking golden. Just focus on what you want to accomplish and do and just play with this. And yeah, you can help other people with that. So, again, I can't shortcut these things. There's no real shortcut to talking about these things or explaining these things, because you want to understand and consciously understand how that momentum was built up on multiple aspects of your life and how it does work with multiple subjects. Again, religions knew how the power of repetition, mantras, chanting, various kind of religions and philosophies knew. It's just that I went over this subject enough time. But we've done this collectively. Now we understand this at more of a core where we can explain it. And if you don't necessarily want to take the time to understand and learn or practice this within yourself, it is fine. It's fine. It is. I mean, it's your life. Yet, being the only negative person in the room of 50, you gonna smile, bitch. No. You gonna smile. No. But you're gonna start feeling that electromagnetic field around you, and do not feel lacking. You're not lacking. You're never lacking. That was just a subconscious idea. Maybe it'd be an interesting talk to go into deeper, granular details about it, or if anybody wants to bring up personal experiences, at the end of the day, you might as well do it. People who judge, they're only judging from their own perimeter. So guess what? They ain't going to be open about their own thing. That's the momentum that's been running around. I mean, there's being a character in being a critique. There's being a character. But then there's also having that subconscious habit fucking around with your life. And you'll only know the difference within. So, thought I'd like to share. It's an amazing topic to look into and to play with, especially if you start to be a bit more of a gamer about it, because at that point you can set yourself up with a list of repetitions that you'll want to do because you'll love to be in that different state and integrate that different state. All that with balance, okay? And to then clear off any other negative beliefs that you may have had and not chosen. It just becomes, oh yeah, this, let me do that repetition a whole week or even less. Sometimes it may just be really fast and then boom, done. All right? If you take the time to do so. If you find yourself distracted, that could be your first task. Your first level 15 distraction to just chunk down. You know, you can play with this at any degrees that you want. The only thing is that you have to notice is do it before the environment continues to do it for you. And seeing that you may have unwanted thoughts of separation within and with others, unwanted beliefs of lack and divisiveness, you know, or you may have really hidden loopholes of I'm doing this with good intention for someone else, but assuming them in lack. If you start noticing that early on and you didn't choose it, then take care of those, because they came in with that repetition and you didn't choose. Again, it's very subtle. It's always going to say it is. There's going to be a big reform in school because that subconscious repetition fucked around with a lot of people. And frankly, we're at a point where evolution-wise, we can go much further than the repetition that school gets us to go into. The system either needs to get a big change or will just go down on its own. Because initially, when you understand that whole mechanic and system of repetition, you can just do it off on your own. and specialize and focus in a specific set of repetitions while having a base, a general base, you know, your numbers, your calculation, your sports, your exercise, and various other bases. But anyway, we'll see a reform in a couple of months, maybe. Yeah. These are talks in the air. More and more talks going around that. Don't, again, watch out for the repetition of the news because you're being fed some basic vision of what the world is, literally. And again, repetition puts it into your perception, and subconsciously, you've got those blinders. It is that simple. So, do it on your own. Feel free. Ask some questions. Look up neuroscience. Look up the word of Dr. Joe Dispenza. You want to look a bit more at quantum physics. What the bleep do we know will give you a trail of it. If you want to look at the spiritual aspect of it, when it comes to New Age, look at The Secret, the movie, the various versions of it to understand a bit how the law of attraction connects to quantum physics, and then start looking at certain religious texts, the banned ones, because you want to set the difference. So, Gospel of Thomas, the Kabbalion, the Emerald Tablets, audiobooks, you'll find them freely on YouTube, and you'll start seeing the interconnection between all of this, all in this aspect of repetition, conscious feeling, and different states, as well as, hell, even yoga can help you understand this more. So there's multiple references and stuff around. It's all there. If you want to talk, I could even talk some more for you. If you want to get some reference, go out there, look, do your practice, do your repetition, get your own mind, program it for your own being, for your own well-being. And as you do that, it ripples out to everyone else. Remember, electromagnetic field. There's some cool shit that can happen with this when you play and work with it. And you can always ask yourself the cheat code question. All right, what if I understood this at a core? How would it feel? How would I go around my day? And then get a bit of a hint of a direction that you would feel, take, different state. So that's it. Leaving off with you. Please be in the comments. Be in the comments, you know. Be in the comments, talks about this stuff. Might make another video about this. I'm going on because it's a very important subject, and we've kind of collectively ignored it till now. Hell, we could even talk about the momentum shifts in history because of repetition. I mean, I didn't want to bring the bombshell of World War II, but you know what? Let's just cut it. Cut it here, okay? Repetition. Keep it in mind. Have fun.